Hey, welcome. OddStory is where we are. Thanks a bunch to those guys. This is the Wild Outside podcast. I guess it's a video cast too. What's it called? V-cast? What's it?
Yeah, vlog. Maybe?
Vlog cast, whatever. So this is the 13th edition of this kind of conversation that we're going to have. And I have some awesome guests. I mean, one of the most awesome guests on planet Earth, and another one that's really the most awesome for another person. And we'll explain that. That was really confusing. But first, about a little what's going on with Wild Trails. Then we'll talk a little bit, or actually Seth will talk a little bit about what's going on with L2. This is called the Wild Outside, Wild Trails, and L2 Outside, just so you know the connection with the partnership. Week before last, Wild Trails had perhaps the best stage race of all time. This is the 12th version of the Chattanooga Mountain Stage Race, and oh my God, it was just spectacular. Most people kept all the blood on the inside. There was a couple stitches maybe, but nothing substantial, which is unusual for that race. We've
ran the next day.
And he ran the next day. We've had some fairly serious head traumas in the past, and broken legs and broken bones and broken shoulder one year, I think. I don't know. So that was really great. The next race that's coming up is the Still Hollow half marathon and 10K. That is the first Saturday in August. And that's at an Enterprise South Nature Park, and it is one of the best half marathons, especially in the country. The 10K is good. There's no doubt about it. It's really pretty, but it's pretty challenging. But the half marathon just rocks. So put that on your calendar. And then the third thing for Wild Trails coming up on July 12th, we're doing a pint night fundraiser here at OddStory. And I think it's something like 10% of the proceeds goes back to Wild Trails. And we're going to have a bunch of silent auction stuff. And in fact, my buddy Mark Akers and I are going to build a table out of something we're going to cut out from the trail maybe tomorrow. So cool stuff that we're going to have coming up. So that's it. Had a cool thing with L2 Saturday. So talk about that. It was cool.
So we did a pretty cool river cleanup on just the downtown area. We try to do this every year after River Bend to help clean up some of the trash. I mean, year round we have to clean up the trash on the river, but it's nice to do it after a big event too. And Wild Trails partnered with us, Chattanooga Cycle Boats partnered with us, and Chattanooga Paddleboards. And all together we came out with some boats, cleaned up a bunch of the trash in the water. I think we got close to 30 bags. We're doing a write-up right now with some good photos. So check out our website and our Facebook for that soon. But it was a really great cleanup event, and the volunteers were awesome. Everybody just had great attitudes and came out and cleaned up a ton of...
the coolest thing about you guys is you and the Chattanooga Paddleboards are competitors, and you're they're your partners.
Yeah,
you're working on stuff together, and it's like there's no competition in it. And I think that's the way everyone should work. That's just, we're going to be a better community if everybody works together instead of thinking about adversarial competition. It's just
there's kind of an old mentality, I think, of you have to be the only one in the game in a region, and I think that. Depending on the size of the region, that could be true. But in Chattanooga, our outdoor community is just growing, and there's a huge pie here for everyone, and the market's growing every single year. And the more we can work together on making that really awesome, I think it's a win for every single company here.
Cool. So the coolest guest of all time is my wife. That's why I was said earlier. So
sorry.
Kris is here. So,
I understand.
And Madia has a last name, but it doesn't matter because it's such a cool name, and like Prince and Madonna and whatever. Oprah.
Oprah. That's it.
I guess that's a good point. If you just have one name, it just launches your Pink.
It's your brain.
Yeah. Pink, for sure.
Prince.
So
anyway, Madia is. I don't know if she's the founder of yoga in Chattanooga, but as long as we've been here, it's been her name has always been sort of the top of instruction and leading the charge of getting more people involved in yoga. But probably more importantly for us about outside stuff is that Madia is really passionate about the outdoors and does a whole bunch of outdoor stuff, mountain biking, hiking, trail running?
Some, but not as much as mountain biking. Yeah.
When are we going to fix that?
I know, right? This might be it. This might be it.
So the Still Hollow half marathon would be perfect for you.
Okay.
Your first big trail marathon.
I'll have to check it out. Go drive right in there.
Right. Jump in.
You know?
Madia is really focused on outdoor stuff and outdoor connection. That two things that I believe are the biggest problems in probably not just American communities, but probably worldwide communities is, and they're all getting worse, not enough exercise, not enough activity. Bodies are not being used. I don't care what it is, just moving your body enough throughout the day and not enough connection with nature. So I think that's one thing that I really appreciated about Madia, because she's so focused on both of those things, not independently, which is kind of cool about what you're doing, because it's kind of mindfulness what you're doing. And actually that might be a good way to start this. I don't want to ask about what yoga is, because yoga is an enormously large topic to talk about, but can we talk a little bit about mindfulness and how that equates with like kind of outdoor experiences?
As far as what I've been offering or being involved in is bringing people into a natural setting, like maybe Cloudland, taking them to the waterfalls, and allowing them not only to feel something that is vigorous and some intensity, heart rate, some sweating kind of experience, but also setting an intention to actually notice the surroundings. So there's a silence happening while they notice the surroundings and take it in. So I think that mindfulness piece is something that we are definitely lacking, in the fact that because we're on the phones are like this, and there's so many things pulling us away from this exact moment, that particularly in nature, they have so much science that supports being in nature as a healing, medicinal experience on many, many levels. So to be able to be out there and on purpose be one with nature, like really feel into it.
When I think about mindfulness, I think about being as aware and using all of the senses as possible in this exact moment. Is that safe simplicity of what mindfulness is?
I think that's definitely a definite aspect when you say all the senses. So yeah, so you may make a choice to have what I call different types of meditation out there. So you do maybe a sensory involved meditation, mindful practice, where you're saying, what do I smell right now? What do I see right now? And do you take enough time to actually give room around it? Because again, like you said earlier, not only are we deprived of exercise and deprived of nature, but we're also conditioned to all of us to be on these phones and expect what's next. And so there's no space and room for that. And that's what I think why mindfulness is become such a big thing as well.
Almost having even space and room for like valuing it and like looking at it for what it is. Like even like the internal voice in your head. Like I had a ton of anxiety. I mean, I still do. I think all humans do. Yeah. But a couple of years ago, I was dealing with a ton of anxiety, and I went to like learn more about mindfulness. And one of the things for me, like I thought I was an observant human being beforehand, but like all the things you miss out on in the room around you, that we're just like all the day so tunnel vision. And then two, like even your own internal voice, you're just like, it's always running, and you just almost take it as like gospel, like this is true, these are true thoughts, versus like if you can give space around them, you naturally are like, I don't know if I believe that.
That's
that
so
might
great.
not be true, Because
I have a quote on that I hang on my door at my private practice for yoga and body work, that it says, "Don't believe everything you think." Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how do we know that unless we pause, unless we go, do I really identify with that? And we're going kind of against the grain when we slow down, because that's not how our culture is right now. So it does take a level of mindfulness to say, I'm going to really pause and reflect on this to see, is this giving me what I really want in life?
We don't have to take time for it because it's so immediate with our phones and everything. It's like you don't have to wait for a message to get there. You don't have to wait to like go see somebody. It's all just like right there.
Well, we don't have to take time for it, and we don't. But the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is how distrustful we are, or I am, of my intuition, which is, I think, the smarter part of me. But societally, I don't believe my intuition often because there's no empirical data to support it, right?
Yeah.
And when I don't listen to it, I'm frustrated because it's right. And when I do listen to it, I'm pleased because it's right. But it's so often I don't listen to it because I think, well, this doesn't make sense. This isn't logical. This isn't empirical, right? But it's right. It's true.
And Kris, this is exactly what we talk about a lot, which is, as we're living in the head and not in the body.
Yeah.
And the body is where we know our intuition. And the only way we get to settle into our sensory response is to kind of slow down and be mindful about what am I feeling, what am I sensing. And nature, being in nature, our body is nature. Like it's made up of all of this stuff. So when we get into nature, there's already some kind of energetic alignment. If you allow yourself to do that, if you allow yourself to feel into that, it gives you more opportunity, I believe, to go into intuition and to go into that knowing.
Yeah.
So it really ties in.
I'm so frustrated and have been for decades about people that I go out and go for a run with. I mean, most of Kris and I's adult life has been trail running. That's been the main connection with outdoor activity. I guess backpacking as well, but so many people are out there training for an event. I signed up for something, and they're running, and so let's go for a training run, and that is all it is. And we're going out to running all the way out to Chattanooga Springs and back. I mean, amazing opportunity to witness. I mean, some really cool nature, and they miss so much of it because they're so focused on what they're doing. It's the one thing they're doing. I'm training for this thing, and they're missing all the connection.
Heart
with
rate
nature.
And time.
And the goal versus the journey.
I gotta average X minutes per mile, and my heart rate's got to be X. And I just think it's so backwards in our society. If you want to train for a race, that's great. I really appreciate that, and I applaud that. But go out and do it with your body, not with your mind necessarily. Just go and experience it. Forget how fast you're going. Pay attention and go immerse yourself in nature first, and just see what happens. I think you're going to be a faster, better runner because of it. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sure is a better experience if you just listen to what's going on.
It's not even saying that like thinking about it is a bad thing. It's just like you can overdevelop any strength, and like as a culture and a society, like we've way overdeveloped like thinking and not like feeling anymore. And it's like that's not a bad thing, but we've probably got that pretty down. Like,
well, I think it is a bad thing. I mean, we overthink everything in our society.
Yeah.
We don't feel it. It's
for sure it's bad.
Way
in, like,
too much
that
thinking.
Unbalancedness, but like it's by itself. It's not bad to think about things. It's just we overthink it and
we
don't
need
feel.
both.
We
need to be able to think, but we also need to be able to feel. And I think we tend to be. Our brains are designed, especially men, to be. The physical brain is the corpus callosum is larger in a man, so they go back and forth much more easily between logic and feeling. So the thing is for all of us is about how do we do both? Like how do we have a goal? I mean, we need a goal. Like we'll work on that, but how do we also take the time to feel into ourselves and feel into our body and feel into nature? And I think this really directly correlates to actually the issues we're having in relationships. Like, matter of fact, right now we're doing something very unique and special, which is we're actually listening to each other. And we're
what?
This is a very
what
special.
Did you just say?
Yeah, what was that? I didn't hear a
about
word.
my next point right now.
But that's a really. I mean, we're not
point,
seeing that as a common thing. We typically are. We're quickly saying something and moving on to the next. So I think slowing down, feeling our bodies, getting grounded. That's the other aspect of it, is that earthiness, and I don't use that term lightly. To feel into like what really am I noticing, not in just me, but what am I feeling in you, and am I really connecting,
And is this really
you know.
going to be a tornado that's about
Yeah,
to
we're
happen
so
outside?
how perfect that we've got such nature energy around us.
Yeah,
you know, at this moment.
It's cool. Yeah.
I love a good storm. As long as
It's
safe.
about this time every day for the last few
Yes.
days.
Yeah, it's been
So,
great.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to kind of change directions a little bit and kind of, if you wouldn't mind talking about the whole yoga experience that briefly what you've started.
Well,
Actually more than half.
it's over 5 months.
Over halfway done. Yeah.
So I've been in a 9-month yoga teacher training course with Madia and Sarah Mingus and Heather Dendy, and it's been interesting just in terms of thinking of my own resistance to different ways of I guess incorporating moving meditation. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because for the longest time in my life, over 40 years, a meditative state has come to me through hiking or running, mostly running. And I had a back injury some years ago, and that really kind of shook things up. And the thing I've been sort of, I guess, resistant to, but also attracted to in the training is the whole aspect of shifting from achieving the meditative state through the relentlessness of distance running and finding it more in the holding of a posture that is uncomfortable for me, or sitting quietly and listening. And so one of the hardest things, so we meet on a Friday night for a couple of hours, and then we meet all day Saturday, all day Sunday on these weekends that we get together for training.
And this whole thing is like 200 hours.
Yeah,
or
200
something.
hours. And they have
massive.
this brilliant...
It's a certification program.
Yeah, it's a certification program that
How
weaves
many
anatomy.
books?
I think I have
14?
like 20.
She added.
I did add the suggested reading because you know how I am.
She's
But
a good student.
it's so interesting, and it pulls on so many things that I grew up believing and that I've believed as I've gotten older. But one of the hardest things for me was to sit and listen for a day. Initially, we'd sit and listen, and physically it caused me pain in my back, and it hurt me. But also, I was used to spending my days moving, and it was getting something else engaged in a different kind of movement. It's been an amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
But so I'm thinking about this connection, these different ways that we achieve a meditative state, and I think maybe what we think meditation means culturally. I think growing up, I thought you had to, repeat Om many times and really go in deep and not move and not be aware of anything. But as I thought about how the training has spoken to my years of running, I've realized that there are degrees of a meditative state when you're moving or still. And I attended the Yama course at the Nature Center. I've been wanting to go to one of your mindful hiking outings. So I wondered if you could maybe talk about that. Maybe I said something that
Yeah, I would
made
love to
sense
hear more
in
about
terms
those.
of what you're
for
doing
sure.
with that.
Well, I'm actually, bringing up the Yamas that we did at the tree house in Reflection
Yes,
Riding, which
yes.
was a really, really cool venue to be in a
was.
tree in a little house. It felt so ancient in a way, like
It
the way
did.
the philosophers might have actually done things, maybe not in a tree, but they were around it, or, sitting and just really talking about ideas and what do I really think, and that this was based on the ancient text of the Yoga Sutras. So it was actually some philosophy that we were listening to and talking about it and wondering what our opinion or what our thoughts were on that. So that was I thought that was a very exciting, interesting
It was.
adventure. And
Yeah.
but the other ones I've been doing at Reflection Riding they always have a theme, but I integrate either a hike or you know, and it depends. Some of them might be more vigorous, some might be more calm. So there's different effects, but we end up with yoga out in the pavilion. So you're feeling into nature when you're doing that. So I didn't know if you had a particular question about those out there. You just been thinking about it.
I just would like to participate, so I'm looking for a weekend where I don't already have something.
Right.
But I guess I want to hear what you have to say when, you know, out there walking around, and what things you draw attention to, or not, because I know you like to create space for people to hear and see and feel, and so I don't know. Maybe if you want to talk about those.
Well, one of the standout examples of kind of integrating nature into kind of the whole experience was that there are bamboo fields. So we go, we walk a bit to get heart rate up, get a little rhythm. We pay attention to that, and then we go and pause. It'd be like a runner doing their thing, and then maybe choosing in their run to go, okay, you know, I'm going to do a super intense run, and now I'm going to pause. Now I'm going to take it in. So it's the same kind of concept. It's like we move, and then we walk into the bamboo, and then we become 100% still. So I guide them to even notice when they get antsy. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like this spot, and I'll say, just stay. If you can, don't move from that first chosen spot. And what ends up happening is that they realize, I had no idea what I'm seeing now. Like, all of a sudden they're seeing spider webs that they didn't exist before because they didn't take the time.
Yeah.
You know, so we immersed in something like that, the layers and the subtlety that you miss by the speed.
You know, there's one possible downside to that whole concept is that we run by or walk by a ton of wildlife. Every day you're on the trail that most people don't want to see. That's right.
We want to see it, though.
I would love to see it. That's right.
Right.
So many people don't want to see it.
Yes. Yeah, I get
it. Kind of reminds me of long paddles, like the paddles you go on, like when you're, you know, out in the water for 2 hours or so, yeah, like 13 hours, whatever. You eventually get to the point where you're like, this is like monotonous, and I want to do something else, and I'm like tired of it. But like that, I feel like mindfulness really fits into that piece.
Totally
like
perfect. It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I see that. I mean, every time I go on a long paddle, it's like I get tired. But it's kind of you know, I get tired of the repetitiveness of it, and then I pay attention more to nature, and all of a sudden it just brings it in. I see more stuff than I wasn't seeing 2 minutes before.
Or even you pay more attention to the repetitiveness
of what I'm doing,
and then it becomes
the coolest.
Sort of this interesting.
Yeah. One of the coolest things about this whole thing is if you think about it, then you start paying more attention to your body. It's like I'm not as good as I should be, as I'm. You know, I know that I had a stress fracture of this foot a long time ago, and I throw it out a little bit. And if I do that, it starts hurting that foot. So I'm not paying attention to my technique and my form because I'm just focusing on running. And then all of a sudden, stop and not stop the run, but stop thinking about whatever I'm thinking about. I mean, most of it's nonsense, and start focusing on the mindfulness stuff and what is my body doing, what is nature doing, and pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your senses and be more present. And I think that's so incredibly valuable. And I think it's something that you know, that everybody needs to do more of, for sure.
One thing I think people don't notice is like, it seems like really nice if you have the time to go sit and think about it. But like sometimes it doesn't like necessarily translate. I feel like if you aren't used to doing it to the regular like daily life, for me, like one thing I've noticed from it is like you start to notice like I'm stressed out right now or I feel uptight, and then when I have a conversation with somebody else later, I'm like, man, I'm feeling uptight right now, and I didn't notice that before because like I've had that emotion or that feeling for the last 3 years of my life, and it's just been like on autopilot, and I didn't notice it. And like you start to notice things like that in your daily life after like spending the time to sit and think on it, or like
that's so empowering for you to have that self-awareness because it gives you control, a bit more control, because you realize what's affecting you. Like you're not on that automatic. That's a really great.
And I think you're using. I mean, I just feel that I'm using more of my brain
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I'm more aware when you start opening up and saying and listening and focusing on seeing more, listening more, hearing more, and paying more attention, especially paying more attention to your body. It's as opposed to, your phone and your, what happened yesterday and what's going to happen tomorrow.
I think
So,
what you both said about, sort of paying attention. One thing I really enjoy, I'm going to pull back to yoga for just a minute. One thing I really enjoy about going to classes is I'll show up at class sometimes and I'll be completely scattered and I'll be thinking about 100 different things I should be doing or where I should be or whatever. And almost always the class begins with a prompt to kind of pull yourself into the room or into the space that you're in and to be present in your body. And I feel like so often we're thinking about the past or the future, which doesn't really involve our body. It involves whatever. And when we're invited or encouraged to pull ourselves into our bodies and to be present in the body, there's this, I always take sort of this deep breath, okay, there it is. There's the place where I live in my body, in my brain, right? And then as the class begins and as the postures begin, there are these gentle cues about, correcting something, relaxing shoulders or relaxing the neck or something. And it makes me feel more and more present in myself, which is something I feel like we forget to do in our lives because we're running in 100 different directions. We're thinking about all these things. And I think in a lot of ways in running that was something we would move in and out of.
yeah.
Being present in the body, being out of the body, just to sort of survive those hours and miles. But I think we forget what an amazing union of mind and body we have, and how these entities work separately so well, but how they work even better when they're together. So this is a thing I've been thinking about, which is why I want to come hiking with you.
Yes. Yes, that'd be great.
Yes.
Madia, thank you so much. How to get a hold of you, everybody?
Well, ChattanoogaYogaSchool.com.
Okay.
Also, MadiasHealingArts.com. And any Facebook page, Chattanooga Yoga School.
Just Google Madia. She's
yes.
everywhere.
It'll just, you don't even have to put anything in. Just put Madia, and there it is.
We'll have all of your links after this too and put them all in the podcast.
Oh, great.
So
Thank you for that. That would be lovely. Thanks.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, y'all.
Namaste, y'all. Southerners.
Thank you.
Yes.